Hello and welcome to live post-match reaction to NOLA Gold versus Glendale Raptors. It finished 10-40 and let's be honest, Glendale looked comfortable winners throughout this entire game. Joining me, hi, it's brought to you by DrivingMaul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for rugby predictions and opinion. And joining me is Tony Ridnell. How are you doing, sir?
How are you, mate? Doing good. I think it was 47-5. I think they tacked one on right at the end.
They did, didn't they? That's right. Yes, they did. They tacked one right at the very end. We had that last one. So, a bit of a scrappy game, really. We had, I must admit, I overslept, and then I was lucky there was a half-hour delay because I got my time zones all wrong. So I missed the first 10 minutes. But by the time I woke up, Glendale were already 7-0 up. So why don't you talk us through the opening stages?
Yeah, it was very similar to it's good to see you again, Paul. Thanks. It's good. It's good. The game was a lot like the Seattle NOLA game last week. Seattle got out fast. Glendale got out fast, and then three tries, and then NOLA snuck one back in. So the match was thoroughly dominated by Glendale, no question. 47-5 is not even an indicator of the score in terms of the number of balls that Glendale dropped in the tackle. I mean, I think they might have left 30 or 40 points begging. To be perfectly frank. So it was a big win for Glendale today. Big win. Yeah,
it was a big win. I mean, also they had those two early tries. It was just too easy from that scrum for the second one.
Yep.
And then their defence held up well because I thought, because NOLA went through the phases quite well for a few minutes. For about 10 minutes, they had some good possession. Glendale, they couldn't really break the Glendale line down, but Glendale kept giving up penalties, which gave them field position. And that was one of the. I've got it down here that about 10 penalties to Glendale, about 2 to NOLA. And I'll probably missed a couple for NOLA, to be honest.
Right.
But Glendale's discipline in defence today wasn't very good.
No. Again, the score of this game is actually fortunate to be just 47-5 with the mistakes that Glendale made. Mentally, with the ball in hand, and certainly on the defensive side of the ball in the run. Yeah,
exactly. So they did that. There was a bit of a kicking duel, and there was a bit of fortuitousness around the try for NOLA as well. A grubber through the fullback. I've gone blank as Halliman was there covering it, but a really tough bounce on him, and which gave the Glendale gave NOLA the try, and they needed some luck, didn't they?
Yeah, well, let's talk about that try, right? I mean, the ball hits that bounce, and, the condition of the field down at that side of the pitch, I mean, it looked like that thing might have hit a molehill or something, on that bounce. I mean, there's no true bounce on the two edges of the field in New Orleans. There's no true bounce. So, a game's a game, the ball bounces anyway. So, it was a nice try by NOLA to come back for sure. NOLA's always going to be battling back. They're a scrappy team, always going to come at you for 80 minutes.
Yeah, and heat and humidity definitely started to take its toll in that first half. And we saw JP Elon. The more the game went on, he was trying he was trying a few things as well, wasn't he?
Well, I thought NOLA were pretty again not very industrious in the backs. Elof didn't look whether he wanted to distribute the ball or take the ball forward. When he took the ball forward, he looked in trouble and got isolated a bit. I just didn't see much creativity from the NOLA backs today. Although, and they didn't have much. They just didn't have much ball to work with.
Yeah, it was structures, wasn't it? We had that break. We had various other breaks where the players got isolated and turned over. We also had the captain. Where's his name? Oh dear me, Howden. Trying to kick some balls. His kicking, he has got a very prodigious boot on him, but his judgment today was a bit off. A couple of balls going out in the full, keeping his team under pressure, which they really needed to get their exit strategies right today because they weren't going to go the length of the pitch to score.
Yeah, conditions are not, not only for Taylor, but conditions are not for every one of the players. I think we would have to say that for both teams, the standards are, that need to be met are not being met.
Yep.
Far too many balls going to ground, we've got a player that's going to probably be wearing the 12 jersey for the Eagles in the next 2 weeks. Bryce Campbell, he knocked on at least 3 balls today, and I don't know what's going to happen, but we as a league, perhaps, just going to need to raise the bar on this handling. And I don't know if it's the weather or not. And if it is the weather, we got to figure out how to do that too.
Yeah, I mean, there was some comments by the commentators that the ball that they're playing with does get very slippery. The grip's not quite there. We had Grant talking last night about the ball not kicking true as well. So I think there's some learning points all over the place for them for the league, and so perhaps the quality of the balls is one of those things that's going to have to pick up. But one of the things I heard that they do in New Zealand for training is they soak their balls in soapy water before training.
Oh,
to increase the handling obviously over here in rainy conditions rather than in humid conditions. But maybe that is one of the things that teams might want to pick up on before they travel down to Texas for some of these games. Well, actually, this was Louisiana.
You know me. I'm thinking the long sleeve shirt might come back.
Going old school.
Throw some cotton on the forearms, and maybe you hold on to the ball a little bit better. No, I don't know what's happening, but it sure looks slippery. It definitely does. And really, it for the spectator, it reduces the enjoyment of the game. It reduces the flow of the game. Today, without those handling errors on both teams, would have just been a magnificent display of rugby. But so many movements were stopped by pretty pedestrian ball handling errors, in my opinion.
Absolutely. By my count, I had 14 scrums to NOLA and 4 to Glendale. Now, I'm not saying I've caught them all. My stat keeping isn't the best, but 14 scrums is a crazy number. And NOLA's handling was definitely better than Glendale's. They turned the ball over more at the ruck time than they did from knock-ons. Really, I felt so. That was definitely an element of this. And as you say, after that intercepts, NOLA had a good start to the second half. Couldn't get any points though. We're going backwards. Will McGee reads the ball nicely, intercepts, and runs it back for a try. And
McGee had a nice game. McGee had a nice game today. I mean, he's definitely wants to put his stamp on the 10 jersey for the Eagles. He's a nice young man. He's been very steady with the boot. He controls the Glendale backline. I think we should be very confident that McGee is going to be playing the next few weeks in red, white, and blue, and he's done a great job for Glendale.
No, he has done. But that was one of, I think, 4, or it's probably 3 interceptions. The last one was really the turnover was a turnover try rather than interception. But I do think when essentially Yoget or Younger was on the pitch, his passing was a bit too flat, a bit too pedestrian, and that opened them up to those intercepts, which you say that's all about the pace of the game, and their structures just weren't there for that kind of passing game.
Yeah, Holden at 9 for NOLA really does pass a flat ball. I mean, I've noticed that the last couple of games. I've never really seen him play before this year. I didn't get to follow him at St. Mary's, and obviously he had a great college career here and is projecting to have a great professional career. But he does pass the ball flat. He's a nice, I got to meet him last week after the Seattle game. He's a nice, hard young man.
And so he's going to get the pace on that. We then went through probably about a 15-minute period of quite a few mistakes. We had where basically NOLA couldn't get out their own half. We had Howden kicking out on the full about twice. Glendale coming back.
My notes say scrappy right there for about 15 minutes. You're absolutely right.
I was a bit worried as to what word you're going to use.
It was pretty ugly.
And then basically we had the pressure eventually told, and Glendale didn't knock the ball on, and so they went over. Basically, is how it happened. And NOLA did come back. I agree with the commentators. I thought NOLA should have taken a 5-metre scrum rather than the tap and go. Their scrum had been pretty. I mean, let's say they had plenty of scrummaging practice, as we've already talked about, and it was solid.
Yeah.
So the it was a surprise to see them tap and go with just 5 metres out. You won't see that in professional rugby around the rest of the world, really, unless when defences are set. But still, they got the gap on the left wing and got over. A nice little bit of handling there for their try. And I think what they deserve for their endeavour. I think 10 points is about right. Their kicking was poor, or the kicking for the tee anyway. Didn't, but they were never in this, but they did deserve some points.
Yeah, I think like Dave Williams, the coach of Glendale, will walk away with that game with some mixed feelings. Obviously, happy about getting a big away win, but also understanding that some of that play is not going to win them a championship here. So they're clearly the team to beat in the league, no question. And I think the standards are getting higher and higher for all the teams.
Yeah, and I think on defence they were solid today, and that's what won them the game. Is that
they're very well structured. They're very well coached, very well structured. They're playing for each other. They've been around together a long time, and it's great that they're there as the Cadillac of the league so far.
And you're right. It is structure that plays into their hands when they're down it's Louisiana, isn't it? In those conditions, when it got scrappy, obviously their handling wasn't there, but also their fitness wasn't going to be there either, and so they needed the best game plan for them was to keep it tight. And to play that structured game. They did get 2 late tries that kind of blew the score out. Blew the score out a bit. And but we'll talk about Will McGee. 7 tries, 6 conversions. He was his kicking was on form, definitely.
He's getting it done. He's got it done all year. He's done a super job. Paul, let's talk a little bit about maybe the next couple of weeks when these teams have to lose their Eagles and the Canucks go away from Seattle. Glendale's going to be an interesting watch the next couple of weeks, missing six of their Eagles. And you see what happened with San Diego when they played with 7 of their Eagles and they went up and got beaten pretty hard by Austin.
No, absolutely. And we've got so that if you just leave it on the standings, then that will put Glendale up to 24 points, just 1 point behind Seattle Seawolves, but with the game in hand. Right. And they're basically clear of Austin Elite Rugby on 17 points, so that's another 7 points back. Because then we got that fight for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Austin on 17, Utah on 15, but they've played one. I haven't got games played on here. NOLA on 12, San Diego on 11. So San Diego now are a win behind Utah. So they're running out of time, really.
Pete Steinberg on the broadcast mentioned that Houston is still able to make the playoffs. I couldn't figure that out, but maybe.
So Houston.
Maybe you could explain.
Well, I can try. Houston are on 9 points, so they've got 2 games remaining, which in theory which means they could get up to 19 points. So if everyone else just loses. Which can't happen really because teams.
Right.
If one team loses, another team's got to win.
Right. Exactly.
So I'd be surprised if they can mathematically make it. Sure, they can get 19 points, which gets them above Utah in 4th on 15. But you'd be surprised if Utah, with their 2 games, don't pick up 4 points before the end of the season.
Yep.
So that's right. Yeah, Utah played 1 more game than the teams around them. Austin have played 5, NOLA played 5, San Diego have played 5. So they've all got 3 games left, which obviously means that Austin are really surviving on their home form. They've won all their home games but lost their away games. And so they've probably only got 1 game out of their 8 games. They've played 3 at home, so they've I'm not sure if they've got 1 or 2 left. That can't be right. They've got... Anyway, doesn't matter. So they'll have 1 more game at home, 1 more game away. You'd expect they'd win their home game with that kind of record, but they're probably going to lose away. So everyone else has got to chase that, basically that number of about 21 points to try and get that 3rd place in the table. Yep. But as you say,
the bonus point format is nice, and I think the bonus point format is going to put 1 team in and keep 1 team out, but that would have had similar points based on 1-loss records. So it's a nice system that keeps teams forced to play for 80 minutes, forced to turn up, forced to perform. And it allows the spectators to get a little more enjoyment out of the full 80 minutes.
And the kings of that have been Utah, 7 bonus points out of their 6 games, which is impressive. So looking at the games that are coming up, I mean, as you say, teams missing their players. Seattle will be missing their Canadians as they travel down to Austin, who we've just said have a great home record.
Right, we're going to lose our Canadians, but here's a little spoiler alert: the big afro-haired Hawaiian boy, Vili Tolatau, is a wonderful number 7 for Seattle. Has been picked up to play for the Eagles over the next 3 weeks. So we're delighted about that in Seattle for sure. But we're going to miss him as well.
Oh, you are? Oh, wow. We've just got, by the way, we've got Seba Kalam's dad on watching us today. So hello, Sergio.
Yeah, what a nice player. What a nice player his son is, Sebastian. Wonderful little player. Chilean.
I'm trying to see, was he playing? No, he wasn't playing there today.
No, not today. No.
Then, while that's happening at the same time, we have Houston travelling to Glendale, and with Houston's only having one game this season, you've got to say Glendale, even with their 6 players missing, they should pick up a home win for that one.
That'll be an interesting one. You know, Glendale's first and a half team, or whatever first team 1.5. I think they're going to show some pretty good. I think they're going to show some pretty good depth. But I got a feeling Justin Fitzpatrick's boys are going to come up and they're going to turn up in Denver next week. It's going to be a pretty big crowd. There should be a number of people in town for the USA versus Russia on the Saturday the next day. I'm thinking personally of flying to Austin before going to Denver on the Friday night and then going to Denver on Saturday for the test. But there should be a good crowd there at Glendale for the Houston game on Friday night.
And as we saw, Houston have got the pack to put it to Glendale. It's going to be about the backs and whether they had the pack to take on that structured approach. So it should be an interesting game. And then on the Saturday, San Diego travel to NOLA, which is going to be one of those games that's going to be a 10-pointer because San Diego just 1 point behind NOLA, with them both finding out for that for that playoff spot, and that's going to be an interesting one because that could basically decide which one of them has a chance, which one doesn't, going into heading towards the playoffs.
Right.
And then just going to cherry pick out of it rather than go through all the games, but Seattle at Glendale, that's on the 16th of June. That has got to be first versus second, whichever way round they are at that point. That's going to be a cracking game, and
it'll be a monster, absolute monster. Yeah, it'll be a great game. But unfortunately, again, it's good. All the players are going to be. The number of the top players are going to be gone. So, if you project into the playoffs, if you've got Glendale and Seattle now, probably have shown the league. I don't think I'm out of line saying those are the top 2 teams in the league right now on form, and certainly the top 2 teams in the standings. But with the players, moving around the next few weeks, there could be a couple of sort of surprise losses. Maybe Houston takes down Glendale, missing 6 of their players next week, and Seattle versus Glendale maybe is a jump ball. So obviously, I think the first, as you look to the playoffs, you'd like your top 2 seeds to not meet each other in the semifinals. But this sort of mixing up of players towards the end of the year could create a scenario where also Glendale and Seattle play for yet a third time, not in the final, but in the semifinal.
One of the points that was made today was that getting that 5-point victory was important to Glendale because that opened up that 7-point gap over Austin. Austin have only got 2 games left. Closing that 7-point gap, they can get 10 points. Glendale doesn't have to pick up too many to ensure they get that get that home semi-final. So I think they will. I think Seattle and Glendale will probably finish first, second, especially because of Austin's away record. In this, so and it's the next 3 rounds. You say the internationals are missing. That's the final 3 rounds of the regular season. One of the things that's going to be key is how well do you integrate your internationals back into your side when you go straight into semi-finals week after that as well.
Sure. That's obviously going to be up to the individual teams. Who knows? That's one of the, it's one of the problems with it's not necessarily a problem. It's something I think, as time goes, year 2, year 3, teams will start to sort out a little better how they work on integrating players back. I just thought it was strange that Glendale had 2 bye weeks in a row. That was just. I'm not the biggest sports fan. I'm a huge rugby fan, but I don't think I've ever seen a team have 2 bye weeks in a row in any competition.
No, and scheduling is going to be one of the things they learn. They learn about
absolutely.
Definitely. But I mean, I think they probably were making sure having that game the night before the USA Eagles game is important. Having that home game and taking advantage of those situations where you can get people in town. That's clever scheduling, and it's good to see that they did.
Well,
that.
I think even maybe even more clever scheduling would have been to have the MLR game played as a precursor to the test. I think that I believe that there's only 7,000 seats sold for the test against Russia next week at Dick's Sporting Ground. Combining those two, you could probably get 15 or 20 grand, I think. But that's just me.
And that would also involve 2 different commercial organisations talking to each other and behaving nicely as well.
That's absolutely true. There's no question about that. That's absolutely true. A lot of naysayers on how that can't happen. But I do know that there will be an MLR game played in combination with the Premiership match that AEG brings. That's going to be bringing in 2019. So there will be an MLR match. I'm fairly sure combined with whoever comes over from England. And I think we're seeing this. I think we're seeing that kind of scheduling more and more. We've got the men's and women's Eagles here in November playing 2 doubleheaders in a row. One in Chicago, they're playing a doubleheader, and then the third game of the tripleheader is Italy versus Ireland at Soldier Field. So they're playing 3 games on Soldier Field at the same day, November 3rd. And then the next week they're playing a doubleheader, men's and women's Eagles versus Tonga and the English Red Roses. And then the next day England plays New Zealand. So I think some fantastic opportunities for the American rugby fan to come out and really see some top quality footy from our national teams, both men and women, playing at the same time. So I think in the MLR, as we develop the sport to bring fans into the game, these type of doubleheader scenarios are that's excellent planning for me. And
I'm just thinking off the cuff, what we could have had is a as part of that triple header maybe fitting in a kind of Major League Rugby All Stars game around that, where you have the Austin, Houston, and NOLA, your kind of Southern State teams play against the kind of West Coast teams for the players that are on their way on internationals. Have a kind of a little fun. Would have been a bit because up in Chicago, obviously the Chicago Lions, I think it is, have been trying to sort things out to join the league as well, and so that would be that could have been a way of advertising the game a little bit. But
true, they've got a nice thing going in Chicago. We've had those rugby weekends now. This will be the 4th one. The second one was a little bit of a non-event, but the last 2 big rugby weekends have been absolutely huge. This one should be enormous for any fan from any country.
So that's how we see those things panning out. I'm not sure.
Who is your man of the match today, Paul? Who is your man of the match today, Paul?
I'm trying to. There was definitely a lot of work by the kind of the Raptors forwards. Fig got himself sent off, which is not particularly clever, but I think those Lucy's did pretty well. So I think it'd be the forwards as a whole. I can't really pull one out because I don't think the backs didn't have the handling for me. So I'd have to go for basically the forward pack as a whole.
That's not a bad call. I'm a Will McGee guy today. I thought he did a great job and was not guilty of many of the handling errors that some of his outside backs had. I thought he if they let 3-4 tries begging, and we had a big cricket score, as they like to say, I think we'd be looking at the game a lot differently.
Yep. I think Troxler had a decent game actually for Gold.
Yes,
was one of the players that looked good for me. JPL off some nice breaks, but you say he got isolated too much. Those are the kind of the players I saw that kind of stood out for me more from the NOLA Gold side.
What's your impression, down there being in New Zealand and originating from England, being around a lot of rugby a lot? What's your impression of the professionalism of the sport as demonstrated by the MLR? Not necessarily today, but maybe overall. I mean, obviously you have slightly different standards from different venues, but what's your thought, from across the pond?
I'm thinking that off the pitch, you've got some teams that have nailed it straight off. I mean, Seattle is one of those. We've seen that off the pitch they've nailed it. We've seen, I can't remember which one it was, one of the southern states when they had it was either Austin or one of the or Houston also came out saying, look, here's what we've done wrong, here's what we're going to improve over the next few games. And so off the field, I think the professionalism has been very impressive. Sure, yes. The facilities need to be improved, but
no question,
there's no point.
It's going to become a real estate play at some point.
Well, absolutely. I mean, one of the things I've been impressed by is that one of the rules is that you have to, the side has to either own or have control of the stadium that they're in. Right. Which is good, because I think if you look at the English clubs that are successful, or that are the ones that actually own their stadium. So, look, Exeter Chiefs, for example, are the only one of the few teams that managed to get a sort of make themselves sustainable because of their grounds. So, I think that's been a good move to say you have to own your grounds.
That's true. That's true, Paul. I think we're seeing in rugby now, with the advent of professionalism and the absolute necessity to run your balance sheet, and work a positive income statement and try and avoid, the mandatory philanthropy that's necessary when you lose money. I really believe that in the United States, growing rugby, a big portion of that is going to be real estate. Instead of giving your money to, other people who've built their own sports, yep, investment in our own sport could be quite intriguing. So I think we're going to start to see that. It's early days. I was an early critic of the New Orleans field and maybe the Houston field, the Shaw Stadium, or Shaw in New Orleans or in Houston and wherever they play today. But, let's give all these guys, just a break. First of all, they've done a great job this year, and it'll get better. We know that Houston will have a new field, and I have to think that they're doing something in New Orleans as well.
Yeah, well, Houston have a new field. New Orleans just needs to get the grass sorted out, because clearly it's an American football pitch that they've widened, and they haven't had a chance to get the turf down properly, and replacing whole turfs costs a lot of money.
Sure.
So that's you don't want to throw that. You can't be throwing that kind of cash around. I think on the playing side, I think.
Well, question here, Paul. How many people do you think were there at the game today? 500. Oops.
Oh,
I just knocked myself over.
It's
500.
I'd have gone 1,000, but maybe I'm wrong. But there was quite a few people in that when the one big stand.
Let's call it 1,000, right? You can't gain sponsors with 1,000 people in the stands. You can't gain sponsors with stainless steel showing over 50% of the grants to the one small grandstand that's being shown. We've got, we're putting a good product out on the field, but to be able to monetize this situation, we've got to focus on getting people in the stands. Got to focus on it. And that holds true for everywhere in our rugby here.
Yeah.
Where there's professionalism. You
need that, but we also saw the power of TV today. In the fact the satellite truck was broken or had issues, so the game got delayed by half an hour. Now that worked perfectly for me because I slept in. But
there you go.
But
worked well for me too, because when you take your notes, I don't have to. Yeah.
So from that point of view, we saw that the TV is going to be one of the main financial drivers of this eventually.
Totally, it's got to be. Yeah, I mean, and that's part of what the humidity commercial water breaks are about.
Yeah.
And the fools earlier in the year that said, that wasn't rugby to have water breaks, absolute ludicrous comments by some people on that. But I think you see that the water breaks allow the TV to show a few commercials. That's got to keep them happy. And what I've heard is that the TV deals that this league has constructed are the best TV deals of any new sporting entity that we've seen. So that's a great thing to hear. I've been delighted with all the media coverage. I've watched every game on TV live, and I'm pretty darn happy. My expectations have been blown away. So even though my expectations are very high, they've still been blown away, and I know it's only going to get better in the next few years.
No, absolutely, and I think, but as far as quality on the pitch goes, I think, well, obviously we've talked about handling errors, and I think the big thing that needs to step up is fitness, especially amongst the forwards.
Yes, no question.
We've seen
no question there.
I remember yesterday someone on Facebook going, "Is it normal for players to get cramps in a game?" And I'm like, yes, but not in the 60th minute or the 50th minute. Yes, it's hot. But yeah, when their conditioning needs to improve, and I think that's going to be the biggest change we'll see from this year to next. Is that this year you've been able to have injuries and bring a player in from club rugby to fill the gap.
Right.
Next season you're not going to do that. If a guy gets a solid proper pre-season in and full training, when those club rugby guys who are training part time come in, you'll see a massive drop off.
That's correct.
And so I think that fitness is the big thing that we need to see improve from this season to next. Is my bit.
No problem here. I think a number of the coaches will tell you, and actually the men's national team coach Gary Gold was talking about the same thing. That's the one thing we get to control here is our fitness. The one thing you can control is how fit you are.
Yep. Now I got it. Sergio Calm has got a question for you in the chat. Perhaps I've got it. I know the answer, but anyway, Tony, a question for the last minutes, please. Any chance of you getting more involved with the USA Rugby Board? Some big leadership needed over there.
Well, that's a good question. I've been nominated for one of the 5 or 6 seats, depending on what day of the week it is, that are available for the USA Rugby Board. I'm very committed to it. I've made arrangements with my work if I was fortunate enough to be able to gain a seat on the board. Obviously worked very hard towards it and learning the game and would really like to be part of, developing American rugby's vision and future moving forward. I'd love to be a part of that. Thanks, Sergio.
And when we're talking about learning the game, we're talking about learning what goes on off the field as well, more than the economics of it and the business side of it rather than the other side. The other thing, actually, the good point from Simon in the chat also, June test window will move to July, will help MLR. And we don't know what the season will be in 2020. I mean, things can change, but
right.
On the assumption it sits in the same part of the calendar, that's also true that'll help. But it's going to lengthen.
I haven't heard about the June test series moving back. Can you explain that a little bit?
Okay, so the current global calendar is what was agreed up until the next Rugby World Cup, so next year, basically 2019.
Right. Correct.
Post 2019, they've come up with a new global calendar that is signed up for 12 years. And
right, that's right.
The major change in that is that the June test window will move to July, basically.
Correct. Yeah, I remember that now. Yes.
Yeah. So that's
when they came out with that.
So yeah, everything else pretty much stays the same. And what this allows is down in the Southern Hemisphere is Super Rugby, if it still exists, because who knows if South Africa will move to Europe or not. And there's all sorts of questions there. It can happen in one block.
It's a fast-moving environment. It really is. It's a fast-moving environment. I mean, I remember when I really got back into the sport, trying to learn all the leagues and what was going on where and who's doing what. And, you got Super and Pro and Top 14 and Europe and Challenge and Champions. And, it's a complicated sport to figure out globally. But once you get it, you can sort of get your arms around it. But the South African team situation, switching to more European-based competitions as opposed to Southern Hemisphere-based, could be very, very interesting. I've read articles both positive and negative on that, and my personal opinion is it'll stay status quo for a while.
Yeah, if it does change, then I think we can. The new global calendar that's set up for 12 years will get ripped up and renegotiated. because it doesn't
You know,
work
and getting,
with South Africa.
absolutely. Getting back to Sergio's point, you know, what the new incoming board of directors needs to do is ensure that for the USA Rugby that that we do create a rugby calendar first, and then second, develop literally a strategic plan to get our country through the problems we have right now, which we haven't had for over 10 years. So the calendar is just vital, and with World Rugby's leadership there, you know, the U.S. I know there's some people in various geographies of the U.S. because of the weather that might not like the seasonality of what they want to have in the United States. But we've got to work within that and then create a calendar where we can make smart commercial decisions as well as competitive decisions.
Yeah, and because you've got the America's Rugby Championship happening at the same time as the Six Nations for the European listeners, which is kind of in your kind of springtime. You've then got what will be the July window, and then also the November window for Test matches. So it's a matter of trying to fit in where that domestic league fits best, really.
Well, I think what they're looking to do is, you know, World Rugby is now really trying to push the segregation of Rugby Americas North and Rugby Americas South. And Rugby Americas North, that geography has this MLR as its pro competition. We know that they're going to develop a Southern South American Rugby Americas South countries professional competition at the club level, which of course will once again push the quality of the national teams. But wouldn't it be amazing to have sort of a Champions Cup, Challenge Cup competition between, you know, the continents? That would be unbelievable. You know, can you imagine if I forget what that big club down in Argentina is, you know, in Buenos Aires, but you know, can you imagine Cuba? I think Cuba is one of the big clubs. You know, imagine if they come up here, if they were one of the professional teams, come up to Seattle. I mean, that would be absolutely incredible. And maybe, you know, 5 years from now, 5, 7, 10 years from now, that's a fixed competition that's, you know, really propelling this side of the world into rugby greatness.
Yeah, and one of the things that I remember listening to Red, White and Black Eye, the American Rugby Pod, was when the American Rugby Championship came along, was they were like, yes, we have a regular competition that we can sort of think about and plan about, and we know is going to come up each year. Whereas historically, that's one of the things that the USA hasn't had, and also Canada as well, for that matter. And so it's these kind of friendlies, which doesn't really fit very well with the American sporting culture, I understand. Yeah. That you get into.
Actually, Paul, what is it? I played a little rugby back in the day. What is a friendly? They used to call it that too. There's no friendly. That doesn't exist.
It basically it's not part of a structured competition. And so having these kind of, as you say, these friendly games that people don't really get.
Soccer can have friendlies. Rugby cannot have friendlies. No.
Dear. But basically, these competitions or these games in June and November, which you don't know who you're really going to get to play.
Right, exactly. Well, that was demonstrated yesterday by the Wales South Africa. You know, South Africa, 13 out of the 23 first caps. That's not a test. Sorry.
So you don't but having that set competition each year lets you build up rivalries. Lets you know, you can plan your kind of watching around it, and that kind of stuff is what's kind of needed. You say you need that clear calendar so that fans know what they're going to get to watch when during the year. Cool. We've as normal we've talked about the game, and then we've digressed and had a good general rugby chat.
I know, man. I'm sorry.
Not at all.
I'm personally trying to change your own agenda there. You want to get to the game and the details and who knocked the ball on in the 43rd minute. I'm trying to talk about constructing some vision for our country here. So we might get a little misaligned, but it's great to catch up with you, Paul. Thanks for having me on the show. And you know, just so delighted to have this competition. I mean, I you know, if you asked me six weeks ago if I'd be sitting here doing a podcast with you on a Sunday afternoon, I'd tell you were crazy. I absolutely love it. And we had a view party at one of the Seattle team sponsors last night, the Post Doc Brewery. There were 200 people there, and probably 100 in Seawolves gear. Absolutely magnificent environment to watch the game. 2 hours before the game, they did a Rugby 101 with two referees. there were probably 40 people, 30 people in the room. 75% of which were non-rugby people. They, first year of rugby. So whatever's going on up here, something's happening and it's really catching on. And then, I told the people about I told some of the guests about the Amazon Prime special that's on All or Nothing about the All Blacks, and there's a lot of questions about that. So we're having a lot of fun up here in Seattle, man. It's just great, absolutely great.
And it's, as I say, the jersey sales, the off-field stuff has all been, amazed me. And seeing the number of people in their team jerseys has been fantastic to see. It's been really good.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So Tony, why don't you let people know where they can get hold of you and between games?
I write a blog. It's blog.ridnell.com. RIDNELL, blog.ridnell.com. I just wrote an article this week on kind of what's going on up in Seattle. There was some disparaging comments about respect up in Seattle, and I wanted to put those rumors to rest because we've got a tremendously passionate fan base up here. And then my Twitter is at Tony Ridnell, and please follow me. Thanks.
Cool. And hi, I've been Paul, guy behind DrivingMaul. Always up for good old rugby chats. Put your comments down below. Please hit the old like button and do subscribe for more Major League Rugby post-game reactions. And then also I'll be joined by Raymond from the what's it called? The Seawolf Pod.
Seawolf Pod.
Where and to do
how did you boys do on your selections this week? 2-1.
2-1. Yep. So
nice.
we'll be doing that again. We'll be doing our predictions for you. We'll do a live show of that, and you'll be able to hear. If you prefer listening rather than watching, you'll be able to catch that on his podcast. So cool. Thank you very much for joining us, and enjoy whatever rugby you're watching.
See you, Paul.
See you.